Hello and welcome to the video. In this video I'll be giving the Irish Red Ale my full guide treatment. In my usual style guide format I will begin with a little history before then moving on to BJCP notes for competition before then sharing a recipe writing guide on one of my own tried and tested recipes to this style along with recent brew day footage. I will then show you the finished beer with my tasting notes and impression. So let's get started with a little history. Beer brewing in Ireland is said to have been in existence since the Bronze Ages. This beer style historically describes a red, amber or actually brown beer style that has been brewed in Ireland for many years as an Irish alternative to bitters from England. The Irish Red Ale titling was actually an American marketing strategy that was made popular in the 1990s by Coors with their release of the Killian's Irish Red Ale. Rather oddly, this was not actually an ale at all but a lager. I would guess this was also a marketing department decision too. Before this, in Ireland, this beer style was actually known as a Ruby Ale. This style was originally brewed by the Killian family's Letts Brewery of County Wexford in Ireland. I will now provide a quick summary of the key points from the BJCP for this style. Do note that they are most useful for competition but also provide somewhat helpful guidelines for all. Aroma. Low to moderate malt aroma, either neutral grainy or with a lightly caramelly toasty toffee flavour. Hop aroma is low earthy or floral to none. Appearance. Medium amber to medium reddish copper colour. Clear. Low off-white to tan coloured head. Average persistence. Flavour. Moderate to very little caramel malt flavour and sweetness. The palate often is fairly neutral and grainy, or can take on a lightly toasty or biscuity note as it finishes. A light earthy or floral hop flavour is optional. Medium to medium low hop bitterness. Medium dry to dry finish. Clean and smooth, little or no esters. Mouthfeel. Medium light to medium body. Moderate carbonation. Smooth, moderately attenuated. Overall impression, an easy drinking pint often with subtle flavours, slightly malty in the balance. I have now added the BJCP vital statistics to the bottom of the screen, and to the right I have supplemented this with those all-important BU-GU ratio figures. This is shown in low, high and average for your interest. If you are one of my viewers who likes to screenshot my video sections for future reference, then this section is now complete. Let's now move on to my guidelines for writing your own recipes to this style. I will start with the grain bill. The base malt of choice for this style is pale ale malt. This is going to be usually at 65% plus of your grist. This acts as canvas to add flavour to and will provide the majority of the fermentables for your recipe. You may be tempted to go for Morris Otter or other more flavourful versions of pale malt. As far as I'm concerned, this is perfectly fine, but some would say that it's not necessary for this style. Experiment here for your own taste. Munich malt is a popular choice for those looking to add in some extra malty flavours and aromas as well as maybe a little bit of biscuit. Usually at anywhere between 10 to 35% of your grist for this style. For many, this malt alongside the pale malt provides a more interesting backing to this style. Let's now look at crystal malt. At up to a combined 12% of your grist, some will use two different types of crystal malt. Usually the first being a low EBC example to give some extra caramel flavours in the background, along with some head retention, then a higher EBC version to gain further colour. On the topic of colour, do keep in mind that this style does not need to be traffic light red, or even for BJCP competition there is a fair span of colour choice between red and copper. Some breweries will even use colouring agents to obtain a bright red, but this is not something we need to do at home, of course. I would suggest you prioritise flavour rather than colour. Beer is for drinking after all. In actual fact, it is the roasted barley that provides the red hue for this style within your grist. You will not see this within your brewing software, but by adding anything between 1 to 1.5%, you will find that this is ample enough for this effect. Naturally, this will give it a little bit of a roasted background at the higher range, but care should be taken to use this sparingly for this style. Flaked barley is an optional authentic choice for this style that can replace Carapils in this recipe to add in head stability and retention without adding in background caramel notes. It will add in a rich grainy flavour though. I suggest limiting this to 5% of your grist. And then we have rye malt. It should be said that rye malt is not actually part of this style in Ireland, but it has become a popular choice in the US, and we should really realise that the Irish red is really the American interpretation of this beer style rather than something actually Irish. Naturally, I mean this with no disrespect to either party here. Rye for some will be a nice extra to give some more flavour to this style. If you are entering this for competition, then resist the temptation to add too much. 3 to 5% is generally going to be in keeping with this style, but do be aware that how strongly this comes out in a beer is very taste palate dependent. Rye malt will add in a grainy, slightly spicy flavour that has a wheat-like flavour quality within itself. Moving on to hops now, and the key here is to use British varieties. Shown on screen now are examples, the most common being either East Kent Goldings or Fuggles with a British hop for bittering. The hop profile of this style is mild, so do keep this in mind. I have seen some online recipes that use US hops like Citra for this style. Naturally this is not the style, but as a home brewer you are free to experiment to your own taste. Just be careful of this if entering competition. Common hop addition times for the style are at 60 minutes, the start of the boil for bittering, and 15 minutes for flavouring. Some find a preference for this style in just using bittering hops. To finish off this section, let's now look at yeast for this style. I am sharing examples on screen in both liquid and dry form as well as Quake. In terms of dry yeast, you could go for more esters from Fermentis SO4 suggested here, but I would strongly advise fermenting this at its lower temperature range to minimise the esters for the style. SO4 is known for accentuating maltiness, so this can certainly work very nicely for this style. More common is to go a more neutral ester route via Nottingham. Nottingham is a great high-performance yeast example and will make light work of this style as well as providing high flocculation, which will greatly aid in obtaining fine clarity quickly. Out of all of the yeast mentioned here, Nottingham is probably the best suited along with its light ester profile. Do be aware that the two liquid strains shown here have a tendency of producing diacetyl, which can be viewed as part of this style by the BJCP in actual fact in small measures. If you are using one of these and do not want this effect, then a diacetyl rest can be used by raising the temperature towards the end of fermentation. Both of these strains are light on ester flavour and certainly very suitable. If you intend to go the Quake route, then really you are making a hybrid of this style. Framgarden and Voss do certainly work well in British styles, and will certainly work with this one also. I would suggest lower than usual Quake temperatures though to subdue the esters. Naturally, another means of ester control for all yeast will be to ferment under pressure, which would leave you with a clean and crisp result free of esters, which is certainly very suitable for this style. Take a screenshot now if this is your thing, as this section is now complete. Let's now look at water profiles suitable for this style. Firstly, we have a balanced profile. This will offer a cleanliness that will let all ingredients sing in even harmony. And secondly, we have a malty profile, which will of course bring forward the malt. As always, this is simply a question of taste and a decision for the individual to experiment with for their own taste. My recommendations are based on average taste, but this may not be yours at all. Water is a very important part of a beer's ingredients, and it is something I highly suggest experimentation with. Okay, let's get brewing my tried and tested recipe to this style alongside brew footage from a recent brew where I used the Brewzilla 35 litre brewing system. This recipe will of course suit all other brewing systems and methods. I'm sharing the recipe in full in this video's description and also via Brewfather via an internet link, which is also in this video's description or by searching on the Brewfather cloud. This recipe can be very easily changed to any other brewing system or volume within the Brewfather platform. You simply change the equipment section accordingly and scale it to the volume desired. You should then replace my ingredients with your own and ensure the values for IBU and gravity match that for the original. This is very easily done by using the recipe in the video's description for further reference. Before I go through this recipe, here is a quick detour that I hope you find useful. I noticed, and maybe you did also, that during the doughing in phase with this grain, it was clearly very finely crushed, and there was much dust. For my last few brews, I have had homebrew stores crush the malt because quite frankly the weather has been pretty lousy and milling grain in my garden has not been too appealing. This one though was so bad that I vowed to mill my own grain from this point. Let me show you how this mash started. I have naturally increased the speed of this footage so that you can see the overflowing faster. This overflowing is more than okay for the first 10 minutes or so of your mash, but after that you really need to take some action, which is what I had to do with this one. Here I am adding rice hulls, which are great for this, and you can also use oat hulls too. And then I'm giving the grain a good workover. I did this twice in actual fact, but it was still not right. This process is much the same as a proper dough-in method, but here you are looking to mix in the rice hulls and break up the grain further. Had I added even more rice hulls in, then frankly I was in danger of really messing with my efficiency even further, so I stuck it out, pun partly intended. By going through this process, I was easily able to recover the lost efficiency. In actual fact, I arrived some points ahead of the target. So as you can see, even a stuck mash brew can be recovered very nicely, but it will take more time than a normal brew, which is the downside here if time is an issue for you. Anyway, back to the recipe, and now shown on screen is the mash schedule for this one, which is a nicely balanced profile that will give a little bit more complexity than the standard one-step plus mash out. Such things can make all the difference to such styles. Shown on the left now are the vital statistics and grain bill for this recipe. As you can see, this is a session strength beer at 4.5% ABV with fairly typical levels of bitterness. In keeping with the style, this recipe is mostly pale ale malt, which is our canvas to build flavour onto. At 25% of the grist I have Munich, which will add in some malt complexity in the background. The Carapils here at 6% is a low colour crystal malt, and its main job is to aid in head retention along with a little body. This will also add in some sweet like caramel flavours in the background, which will help this one sing. The crystal malt here at 50 EBC is used simply to start the process of colour. It is actually the roasted barley at just 1% of the grist which will actually add in that all-important ruby red hue effect. When you first brew a beer to this style, you can be forgiven if you're wondering if it's too dark. It isn't. This is just how the style is. You will find that once this clears, things will look rather different and a ruby red hue will come through, especially if a light is behind the glass. This is a subtle style, and as such the grain bill reflects this. As I'm sure you can well imagine, this was not exactly a lightning fast sparge. Naturally much can be done to speed this up, but like with the mash, this comes with limitations if you are looking for efficiency to be true to your recipe. I simply let this sparge take its course and did other things while waiting. However, I do not mind pushing the fast forward button for video as shown here. Moving on to the boil now, and you can expect some protein on the head, which I suggest you stir in. If you decide to remove it altogether, then it will be a little easier to clear, but there are plenty of ways of doing this without removing flavour and texture, which is what will happen if you remove this protein. Now shown on screen to the right are the boil details. You will note that there are only 2 hop additions here, and these do not amount to much in the way of hops at all, so as such this will cost you a fraction of a hoppy style. As well as this, I would highly recommend the use of something in the boil to kickstart clarity. Once you have added this, then remember to give it a good stir in so that you can maximise its effect. Before the end of the boil, I decided to use the Jaded Brewing chiller to speed things up more. Like with my usual counterflow chiller method, this needs to be clean and sanitary, and the last part of this process is simply adding it to boiling hot water for some minutes. This certainly does a great job of chilling all your water once very quickly, and you can expect a full review of this soon on my channel. I was very quickly at the desired temperature, and then I pumped out the wort straight from the Brewzilla into my Grainfather conical fermenter. I decided to use this setup because there was no plan to add pressure, and because I plan on giving this one some cold crashing before it hits my keg for clarity. The yeast used here is Nottingham, which is really ideal for this style as mentioned earlier, and due to its high flocculation rate, this should be one that is easy enough to clean up too. Shown on screen now is the fermentation schedule in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. You will see that this one starts fermentation at 19 degrees C or 66 degrees Fahrenheit, which keeps this a nice clean ferment. And then in the final days I suggest a gradual ramp up in temperature as shown on screen till you reach 22 degrees Celsius or roughly 72 degrees Fahrenheit. This will ensure a full attenuation, or said another way, will give your yeast the ability to convert all the intended sugars into alcohol. Performing this ramp up in temperature also protects against DMS, which will give your beer unwanted off flavours. While we are on the topic of this yeast, I note that some online claim that Nottingham is a multi-strain yeast mix that has both lager and ale strains. This is actually not the case at all. It is a single isolated ale strain that is simply well known for high performance in fermentation speed, attenuation and flocculation. Here is the scene of Nottingham at work. I saw a lag time of about 3 hours from pitch, which is a little faster than I usually expect. On day 2 I added the first temperature ramp up and carried this temperature ramping on for 2 more days, and by day 7 in total fermentation was over. I left this for a further 2 days to ensure that I had a consistent FG for 3 days. At this point I then cold crashed for 3 days before transferring to our keg. Okay, let's now give the finished beer a pour before going into the tasting notes. As you can see, this at first glance actually looks like a dark brown beer with no red in it at all. You will find with this style what has an effect is the glass you use and the lighting behind it. Here is the pour with lighting behind it, a very nice red. You do not need the lighting to be red either. If I take this glass and put it behind a white light, again a nice red. Such is this style. Now that is not to say that some breweries have not produced examples that look like red ale, because they have, but that is really not how this style should look like in reality. So if you want a beer for just looking at and you want it just red, then this is not really a style for you. However, if you want a beer that is for drinking, then this style certainly has its fans. Let's now go on to the tasting notes. Aroma. A fresh aroma of slightly sweet malt with a little caramel and a hint of toffee. Flavour. A refreshingly clean and light malt flavour that is semi-sweet on entry with a low level of rounded bitterness on the finish. This is a beer style that is really from and for the American market. Having said that, this does not mean that it isn't a legitimate beer style in its own right, because it certainly is, and it certainly also has plenty of fans. Impression. A simple beer style that offers refreshment and an easy drinking form. Due to its session strength, it is an ideal thirst quencher for those who are looking for something a little different. This may well be something that appeals to you more than a stout for St. Patrick's Day, which is on the 17th of March. Whatever you decide to drink on that day, I certainly hope you enjoy it. I have tried very hard to include all relevant information in this video, but if you have any further questions then please use the comments section of this video. This YouTube channel also has its own busy Facebook group community, which at present has almost 10,000 members. So as such, this is also a great place for questions as well as discussion. This now brings this video to a close. If you have any questions then please let me know via YouTube or Facebook. I do hope that you found this video to be useful, interesting and enjoyable. If appropriate then please like this video on YouTube, and if you've not done so already then please subscribe. I regularly post new content. Happy brewing!